Alrighty, folks. We should be live. Let's see here. Let me see. Hello, hello, check, check, check. Hello, hello, check, check, check. All right. So we're live, we're rolling. Fantastic. This is awesome. Let me go ahead. All right, let's do this real quick. All right, let's do this real quick. All right, I think that should be good. Let me go ahead and do that. All right, we should be set. All right, I think that should be good. We should be set to rock and roll. Do that. All right, we should be set. All right, I think that should be good. We should be set to rock and roll. All right, then you should. We should be set. So let me go ahead. Do this number. All right, so let me send out a couple of messages that we are live. Let me do this real quick. Then let me do this real quick as well, just before we get started fully. All right, so that should do it. Let me do this real quick. All right, so I think we are all set and ready to rock and roll. What is up, everyone? How is everybody doing? All right. All right. So should be good now. What's up, everyone? We've made it. We are here. We are ready to rock and roll. I'm going to give it a few minutes. We're going to start at 9 o'clock. Get this party started. If I'm looking down, I have the chat down here on my iPad. Have our whole database of everything up here. And so let me turn this down real quick so the mic doesn't hear the iPad. We got to figure out what happened to the music. There we go. Now we got the music back. Let me see something real quick. All right, just sending out a couple of messages real quick, trying to get some hype going. See if we can get some people in the chat right now. Just chilling for the moment. Let me do this as well. Perfect. And we're going to go ahead and get started in a few minutes. Just kind of getting everything finalized real quick before we get started. How's everybody doing? How's y'all's days going? My day was pretty good. Just worked and came home, had dinner, and turned around and basically set all this up, updated my database, my spreadsheets, and everything, and we are now ready to rock and roll for this week. I can't believe that we only have 2 more weeks until Election Day. This election season has been a long and strenuous and very intense election season. But at the same time, it has felt like it's been flying by. And we've only got 2 weeks left before Election Day. But it's entirely possible that even more crazy stuff happens between now and November 5th. And with how crazy everything's going, I can only imagine what that means. But we'll see what happens. We never know. Got about 3 more minutes before we are fully live, or before we really get started. We're just kind of talking right now, trying to build up the chat real quick. If you're jumping in, if you're in the chat, say hi. Let me know that you're here. We'll be getting started here in a few minutes with the actual analysis. But we're just, again, hanging tight right now, just hanging out at this moment. It'll be a second before we get started. But we got a lot to talk about tonight. We'll be talking about the presidency and the Senate. The Senate, I just fully finished updating and establishing and putting it all together, my Senate spreadsheet. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight as well. And hopefully won't take too long. But we'll do that here in a second. We're got just a few more minutes before we get started. But yeah, so let me see. Over the weekend, what happened in the political world over the weekend? Trump went and worked at a McDonald's for a little bit, which was quite the sight to see. It was pretty fun, all things considered. A pretty neat little thing, all things considered. He went to the Steelers-Jets game, got a big standing ovation. He went to the Al Smith dinner up in New York, poked some fun at Kamala Harris, Doug Emhoff, Tim Walz. The entire Harris-Walz administration got jokes, and it was quite funny. Kamala, for her part, Lord, what did she do? I want to say she just did a couple of town halls, or not even that, she did an event for her birthday. And outside of that, I'm not 100% certain what else she did, but it's neither here nor there. We're getting ready to get started here in a minute. Gonna gonna adjust my chair and before we get started. Count on your hand how many times I've said before we get started so far. But we'll actually be getting started here in about a minute. Yeah, so hang tight for 1 sec. We'll be ready to rock and roll. In fact, I'm going to grab a water. I'll be right back. All right, I am back, and we are ready to get started. What is up, Mr. Game & Watch? Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for tuning in and being here. I'm so thankful that you're here. How are you tonight? How is everything going for you? You are bearing witness to me. I have a little thing at the stream, so you have seen me step away to grab a water. But now I'm back. We are ready to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, we are 2 weeks away from Election Day, which is absolutely insane. It is wild that we have managed to get to this point. If you have been following politics in any capacity, thanks for asking. I appreciate your analysis. Well, I appreciate you for tuning in, Mr. Game & Watch. It is very much appreciated, and I hope that you find this insightful. And if you have any questions or you have anything you want me to cover specifically, let me know, and I can do that for you. But we're going to go ahead and get started. 2 weeks out from Election Day, there has been quite a bit of change in the polling. By the way, Mr. Game & Watch, let me know, does audio sound good? Video look good? Just let me know if everything sounds good, and let me know if I need to adjust anything. But 2 weeks out from Election Day, and things are really kind of shaping up. We're seeing some very interesting trends and very interesting data up until this point. Let's go ahead and start by pulling up Polymarket. So this is the betting site. Everybody knows about Polymarket. And as of right now, we can see that Donald Trump is pushing 30%, being up by 30 percentage points over Kamala Harris in the betting odds. He is right now projected to win each of the swing states in the betting odds as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at each one of these one by one real quick. So going from left to right, Nevada. Wow, Trump is being overestimated by a lot. Overestimated remains to be seen, Mr. Game & Watch. The interesting thing, and we'll talk about this a little bit as we go, the interesting thing about Trump is that Trump is consistently underestimated in the polling. We saw this in 2016 and in 2020 both, where Trump was vastly underestimated in the polls in different capacities. And I'll show this. I have a spreadsheet that shows everything out. But one of the big questions of this election, which is important to discuss, and will be very interesting to see come election night, is whether or not the polls are underestimating Trump again. Trump is polling, as we kind of walk through, you'll see Trump is actually performing in the polls the best that he's ever been by a country mile. And so the question becomes, is Trump going to get underestimated again? Because it is hard to estimate. It is hard to account in some of the polling for the specific type of voter that Trump brings out, which the name is escaping me right now. But there is a specific type of voter who doesn't vote all the time. But Trump has a really good ability to bring those guys out. So the question is going to be, it's going to be real interesting come election day, whether or not Trump is overestimated or underestimated in the polling. But looking back at Polymarket, we can see Nevada right now, the betting odds have Trump up 57-43. In Arizona, it is 70-30, which I think has gone up since I checked it last. In Georgia, another must-win for President Trump, 69-31 for President Trump in the betting odds. In North Carolina, 66-34. And then in the Rust Belt trio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, 57-43 in Wisconsin, 57-43 in Michigan, and 60-40 in Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania of the three is arguably and pretty definitively the one that he has to win, or that will decide the election. And so the fact that he's in the betting odds performing there the best of the three for Trump is a good sign. But the betting odds, like over the last week, have just skyrocketed for Trump. And it is, if you're a Trump fan, if you're rooting for President Trump, it's a great thing to see. Let's go ahead and come back and take a look at our blank electoral college map. And what we're going to do, we're not going to do what we did last week where we went ahead and did everything by poll closing because that took way too long. I'm going to go ahead and fill out the safe blue and red states, and then we'll go ahead and we'll go through each of the other states and go into a little bit more detail of each state as we get closer to the true battlegrounds. Let me drink some water real quick. All right, so we'll start off and we'll look at these states that are like 95% certain are going to go for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So Washington, California, Hawaii, basically most of the Northeast. So Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Washington, D.C., Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Illinois, New York. Even though Kamala Harris will probably perform the worst in New York of Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. Polling has not been very favorable to her in the state of New York. It's still going to be a safe Democrat hold. For me, safe is anything 10 points or more. But the question will be whether or not she's able to... Joe Biden won New York by 23 points. Polling right now has Kamala kind of around 12, 13, 14, 15 percentage points, which is a massive drop. And so the question is going to be whether or not that actually holds true. Because if that holds true, that could be really interesting to see how that plays out nationally. Now, looking at President Trump, the states that he'll for sure win: Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Utah, North and South Dakota, Nebraska's third, Nebraska at large, and Nebraska 1. Remember, Nebraska divides their electoral votes up by congressional district. Kansas, Oklahoma. We are at the point now with the state of Iowa that we can say Iowa is going to be a safe Republican state. Maybe likely, but I'm going to put it in safe for right now. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, South Carolina. That leaves all of these states. Oh, and I forgot Alaska down here in the corner. And I also forgot Maine at large. Or actually, Maine at large is a battleground, but Maine's 1st congressional district and 2nd congressional district, they split up. Maine splits up their electoral votes as well, and so it is also one of those where everything kind of divides up a little bit. Okay, so that leaves us with Harris-Walz 173, Trump-Vance 132. So we can go ahead, and the states that will be likely. So for me, likely, if we come over to my my database spreadsheet, this is my master project. Likely is anything where the candidate will win probably by 7 to 10 points. And one of my themes that you're gonna hear me say is that Kamala Harris, I think, will overperform Hillary Clinton slightly. I think she will underperform Joe Biden. So Joe Biden won some states by pretty significant margins, but I don't think that Kamala has, for a lot of folks, that same appeal. I don't think that she doesn't have the same appeal as Joe Biden in a lot of, especially states that Joe Biden won, like Pennsylvania, Michigan. But I don't think she's as unpopular as Hillary Clinton is. That may be a hot take, or was, but that may be a hot take. But everything that's going to be likely is going to be won probably by 7 to 10 points. So Oregon for sure, Colorado for sure, New Mexico for sure. Flip it around on the other side. Florida will definitely be a likely margin, 7 to 10 points. Ohio as well, and then Texas as well. Texas, Trump won Texas in 2020 by 5.8 percentage points. He won Texas in 2016 by 9. I foresee him winning by somewhere in the middle. Blexit is not happening this year, at least. And so I think Texas is definitely a safe bet for a likely margin this cycle. And we can already see, looking at early voting, we can see 14,482,619,000 early vote or mail-in and early in-person votes. Sorry, it is Monday. I can't talk. Have already been cast nationally. In Texas, it's been about 50% to 43% in that vote. 133,713 Texans have already voted in early voting. Early voting opened today. I haven't had a chance to go out and vote yet. And then there's been 128,000 mail-in ballots that have been requested. Requested is different than actually filled out, if that makes sense. But this will be interesting to see as we move forward. But 14 days away from the election, we can see kind of the trends of early voting nationally. You're going to see Democrats are going to be leading in a lot of these because a lot of Democrats do have a propensity to, number one, vote early, and number two, vote by mail. The question is going to be whether or not voting by mail is down. There is reason to believe that that is, in fact, the case because voting by mail was very popular and for a lot of people necessary during COVID. We don't have COVID this go around, and so the necessity for a lot of folks to vote in person, to vote by mail is not there. And there is trends and data that we're seeing coming out. There's in most of the battleground states, mail-in ballot requests are down and early vote turnout is up, which is honestly a great problem to have. You're going ahead and you're banking your vote. You bank your vote. You bank your vote early, which is always a win, and you don't worry about any potential shenanigans with a mail-in ballot or any potential issues with a mail-in ballot. Anyway, so coming back, we have filled out. I'm debating whether or not I want to include. We'll probably include Maine in the likely column, and then but we'll move on into the lean column. Lean is going to be anywhere between 3 and 7 percentage points here on the chart. And as we get here, it's going to be a little bit more interesting to talk about some of these. So I'm going to put Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District there. Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District is one of the most blue trending areas in the country. And it went for Biden by how much in 2020? Let me pull that up. Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District, after going for President Trump by 2.2 points in 2016, ended up going for Joe Biden by 6.6 percentage points. That is a 8-point shift roughly between 2016 in 2020. It is one of the most blue word shifting areas. It'll probably, again, in holding with my prediction just across the board for the election, it will probably be won by probably a 3 to 4 point margin by Kamala. This is Lincoln, Nebraska. This is those suburbs. And so it makes sense for it to be a blue trending area. So that's why the 2nd Congressional District will do that. I'll also put Minnesota here. Governor Tim Walz' home state will be a lean margin as well. Minnesota went for Joe Biden by 7.1 percentage points and then went for Hillary Clinton by 1.5. Again, will probably be somewhere in the middle. Probably closer to Joe Biden's margin than Hillary's because of the Tim Walz VP boost. But it will be very interesting to see. Trump has this innate ability with white working class voters to run up those margins and turnout in inner cities with things, or in cities like Minneapolis, will be very interesting to see, especially given the fact that the Trump campaign has gone in and made massive inroads with minorities, especially African American Hispanics. Recent polling comes out that shows that Trump is actually, while it's still like 80-20, Trump is actually performing the best that a Republican has performed in the African American community than any Republican in many, many elections have. Usually Republicans get single digits of the African American community. President Trump is shooting for potentially double digits, which would be huge. If we go to the demographic swingometer, thanks to Cook Political Report, this is one of my favorite tools of this cycle. And we just look at it nationally. This by default sets to the 2020 margins of the demographics, and we can look. We can probably guess that there'll be a slight decrease in African American turnout, and you can already see that flip Georgia back towards President Trump because Georgia was so close. But if we assume, just for the sake of argument, we bump Kamala Harris down like 3 percentage points and then bump President Trump up and just say he wins 12% of the African American vote, still loses the election, but number one is very tight. Still would lose, but number two, he would flip Arizona, he'd flip Georgia back to him, and Kamala Harris would barely be holding the Rust Belt. Now we'll talk about this a little bit more here in a minute, but I will tell you a couple of things to watch demographic-wise as we come into the election. Number one is how much African American and Hispanic vote breaks for President Trump. Like I said, President Trump's performing. He already in 2020 had a really good Hispanic performance, especially down in Florida with the Cuban population. But the question is going to be, especially in these urban centers, how much does he, if any, gain in the African American vote? He's been making a massive play, and again is polling the best. But it'll also be interesting to see if Kamala Harris makes any gains with white college-educated voters. I think that's very possible. That is a more liberal trending demographic. And so it'll be interesting to see if any trends cancel each other out. So like if Trump makes gains in the African American community, but then Kamala makes gains in the white college graduates, does that cancel each other out? That'll be interesting to see as well. Also expect Trump to make gains in white non-college educated voters. Biden was able to break into this a little bit from Trump, but Trump has this appeal, and one thing that's going to help him is the fact that unions are breaking for him a little bit. And so, the Teamsters Union, the biggest union in the union organization in the country, they didn't actually out and endorse somebody this cycle, and they usually always endorse Democrats, which is very big. But then a lot of the state Teamsters unions actually came out and endorsed Trump. So I would expect this 62% right here, that probably bumps up to 65, 66%. And let's just play hypotheticals real quick, bump this down a little bit. If, say, Trump won 65% of the white college graduates, that flips Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada over to President Trump. Just on this alone, Trump still loses the popular vote, but he flips all of the states he needs to flip. to win the election. Now let's say, again, for the sake of argument, say Kamala makes like a 3-4% inroad in white college grads. Trump still wins the election. It's tighter. Michigan, Georgia flip back. But then say Trump makes a little gain in African American, bumps up like 10, 11%. These stay really tight. Georgia's basically even. And then same deal. Say Trump makes just a little bit of gain in Hispanics. You can see how any shift in the demographics in any capacity are going to massively change or massively have impacts, especially with how tight this election is projected to be. Any shift one way or another for different demographics is going to be huge. Coming back to our electoral college map, we were talking about, we just finished talking about Minnesota. So we're going to move on. I would also put New Hampshire in the lean category. New Hampshire had a very big change between 2016 and 2020. If we go back to 2016, President Trump lost New Hampshire by 0.37%, 46.83 to 46.46. And then in 2020, President Biden did win New Hampshire by 7.4. So a 7-point shift in the Democrat direction. Right now, we don't have a lot of polling coming out of New Hampshire, but we don't have a lot of polling coming out of New Hampshire right now. But if we just jump in real quick, the current polling that we do have, and again, there's been 3 polls that have come in since September. Which if I had to calculate a polling average, and it's not given to me, I usually go by polls from September to now. But the polling average is right now roughly 7.8, maybe a little higher if you take out this Emerson poll from July. But I would expect it to be probably closer to 4 to 5. Again, I don't think that Trump's gonna have this massive turnaround and end up winning the state or end up coming within a point. It'll be within 3 to 7 percentage points, probably 4 to 5 if I was willing to guess, which is why I think New Hampshire will sit there. This leaves Virginia, which there is a massive push and a massive hope on the Republican side to potentially be flipping the state of Virginia or making Virginia competitive. New Hampshire is being ruined by Massachusetts refugees. Yeah, I mean that does make sense, Mr. Game & Watch. I mean, with the very liberal policies of Massachusetts, New Hampshire is definitely a state that a lot of voters can flee to, and a lot of voters are choosing to probably move out of. I bet if you looked at demographic movement between the states, you'd find something really interesting. And I mean, New Hampshire is an interesting state. Because, I mean, it went for George W. Bush in 2000. I think that's the last, by 1.3%. That's the last time that the state has gone Republican. It's been pretty close. It went for John Kerry by 1.4 in 2004. Barack Obama, and then Obama came around. New Hampshire's a very interesting state polling-wise. Almost went for Barack Obama by 10. Went for Obama by 5.6 in 2012, and then Hillary almost lost it, and then Biden went back and pulled it up by 7.4. New Hampshire's an interesting state, but again, I don't think that there's enough to pull Trump over the edge, and with a big influx of voters from Massachusetts and potentially Vermont, New York, especially at a smaller scale that New Hampshire is, it's definitely possible that margin maybe stays the same. But regardless, it'll probably stick somewhere in a lean, if I was to guess. So the next state we're going to take a look at, as I drink some water real quick, is Virginia. All right, so Virginia, 13 electoral votes, has trended very much to the left. It was a very solid Republican state, going all the way back to you have to go back to 1964 and Lyndon B. Johnson to see the last time that Virginia went Democrat before 2008. 2008 actually, yeah, 2008 was the first time Virginia went blue since 1964. Barack Obama won it by 6.3 and then 3.9, respectively, 2008, 2012. Hillary won it by 5.3. Trump won it, and then Biden won it by 10.1. Kamala Harris is not going to win Virginia by 10 points. Early voting data would already suggest that Virginia is going to be pretty tight. We're probably going to be looking at closer to a Hillary Clinton margin, maybe even smaller. There's a lot of optimism based out of some early voting data that we've gotten out of Virginia among Republicans that Virginia could potentially be in play. Republicans are running up the margins in Republican counties. But again, it's a question just of how much and will it actually matter. If we come back over here and we head to, where is Virginia? 5338, 1 million votes already. Plus votes already in Virginia. 53 to 38%. That's not a bad split for Republicans, especially in a quote-unquote blue state like Virginia. And so it's just going to be a question of how much early vote comes in for Republicans, and if that's enough to close the margin. But I think you're looking at potentially probably a Kamala 3-4 victory in Virginia. Puts it in a lean margin for us. Right there for us. So that leaves the 5, 6, 7. Wow, I can't do math. That leaves the 7 hotly contested battleground states as the final states we look at on our electoral map tonight. I think at this point, with all these battleground states off the map, what we have filled out so far is a pretty safe bet. This probably won't change. This is the solid point where everything is kind of solid. And we get into the battleground states where it could honestly, in a lot of these states, go either way. We're looking at 229 to 216 right now. Now remember, 270 electoral votes is what is needed to win the election. And we're going to start with Arizona. So Arizona, I bring this up every week. Arizona in 2020. It went for Joe Biden by 0.31%. In 2016, it went for Donald Trump by 3.5%. And as we go back, you can see that Arizona has been a super Republican state, last going blue in 1996 under Bill Clinton. Current polling average right now, the Real Clear Politics polling average right now does have Donald Trump up by 1.6. On this day in 2016, Hillary Clinton was actually up by 1.5, and Joe Biden was up by 3.2. Now, obviously, Donald Trump did win Arizona by, I believe it was 3 points in 2016, and then Joe Biden only won it by 0.3. So actually, I can go to my spreadsheet in here, find our shift. So between 2016 and 2020, there's been a almost 4-point shift average. In 2016, polls underestimated Trump by 5 points, and then by 2.9 points in 2020. So, which again brings us back to the conversation of, are the polls underestimating Trump again? Because Trump is in fact polling the best that he ever has in all of the swing states. And if he's underestimated even by a point, he wins each of these swing states pretty convincingly. Looking at Polymarket, we've already kind of talked about Polymarket a little bit, but Trump has right now a 70-30% chance of, according to the betting odds, of winning Arizona. Most Real Clear Politics, Cook Political Report, most election prediction groups are going to have it basically as a toss-up. If we go to the Real Clear Politics election map, it's a toss-up. Cook Political Report will have it as a toss-up. 538 has it as a toss-up. Actually, it has it as lean Republican, giving Trump a 63% chance of winning the state. All of the trends and all of the data supports that Trump will probably carry the state of Arizona. If we go into the demographic swingometer, wow, I can't say that, demographic swingometer, and we reset the values to 2020, and we play with our numbers a little bit, like I've said. if we give Trump just a little bit of a boost in the white working class, that flips it to Trump. And then if we give Kamala maybe a little bit more of the white college grads, shift African Americans over a little bit, and then shift Hispanics over a little bit. And this is obviously not a solid reflection of how this all actually translates, but it gives you an idea of the ways that the demographics can be shifted a little bit just by different things. So applying my prediction for how the demographics will move a little bit, we see that Donald Trump actually does carry the state of Arizona by a little less than a point, which would be a very important flip for President Trump. And all of this, to be said, leads me to believe that Arizona will go for President Trump. I think that it'll be probably by 1 to 2 points. Again, expect Kamala to underperform Joe Biden and run even, perform a little better than Hillary Clinton, kind of somewhere in the middle. But it'll be anything that is 0.1 to 3 points in my spreadsheet. I have, or anything that is less than 3 points, I have as tilt. So tilt, this lightest shade of red, is anything less than 3 points. Trump probably wins Arizona by 1, 2, 3 points. And so Arizona, the first flip for President Trump, and he begins his trek back to the White House there with his first big flip of the night. Moving across the Sun Belt over to the state of Georgia. Georgia is another traditionally Republican state, last going Democratic in 1992. So Bill Clinton flipped Arizona and Georgia. Ironically enough, they each went for Clinton in different years. But after 1996, it was a traditionally deep Republican state up until 2020. In 2020, Joe Biden did win it by 0.24. That is the closest margin of any state in the 2020 election. 49.47, 49.24. And then in 2016, Trump won it by 5 points. So a 5-point give or take shift to the Democrats. Now, again, Kamala Harris is going to underperform Joe Biden. By how much remains to be seen. We can go in right now to the Real Clear Politics polling average in Georgia. Donald Trump right now is up by 1.8 percentage points. In 2020, Joe Biden was up by 0.8. In 2016, Trump was up by 0.4. Going into my spreadsheet, we can go in and look here. There was from this day to the actual result, a 1.10 percentage point shift towards President Trump. And then from on this day in 2022, the actual result was actually a 0.5 point shift. So roughly between both, about a 0.8%. I think black turnout in Atlanta will drop. I agree, Mr. Game & Watch, and that's again going to be one of the questions that we see. One of the reasons that Joe Biden was able to win the state of Georgia was because of massive black turnout in Fulton County, which is Atlanta. And the question that you have to ask, number one, is there that incentivization in the African American community to go out and vote? And number two, how do we know that that's all going to go for Donald Trump? We can go to how do we know that that's all going to go for Kamala Harris? If we go to Georgia, so you can see DeKalb, Fulton County, here's Atlanta right in here. So Donald Trump's already winning 79% of the white non-college graduate vote. Let's just humor it real quick. Let's just bump him up to 80%. So just doing that, you can see he actually flips President Trump to win the state of Georgia. So just giving Trump 80% flips that. But then let's give Kamala Harris maybe like 40% of the white college graduate vote. And then from there, let's say the African American. Let's say Donald Trump makes a pretty nice gain, gets a 3% roughly boost and wins the African American, gets 9% of the African American vote. That's enough to flip the state back to Trump. And we can assume, based on what you just said there, Mr. Game and Watch, let's say African American turnout drops from 61% to 56%. That's enough to give Trump 50% of the vote, almost 51%, and Kamala Harris only at 47.5%. So looking at all of that, and we can look at the betting markets right now. Polymarket does have Georgia at 69% chance for President Trump to flip Georgia. And I don't think that there's anything, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that trends and data and the current polling definitely suggest, much like Arizona, that Trump will carry the state of Georgia and its 16 electoral votes by a tilt margin, probably closer to 3, probably 2-ish points, plus or minus 1, is probably the best bet for Georgia. But Trump will win the state of Georgia and its 16 electoral votes. That is my current prediction right now for the state of Georgia. Moving on up the coast to the state of North Carolina. This is the first state on this map of these battlegrounds that Trump won both in 2016 and in 2020. He won them each by a little over a point. Or actually, I lied. He won North Carolina by 3.7 percentage points in 2016 and won North Carolina by 1.3 percentage points in 2020. On this day in 2016, he did win. He was actually down by 2.8 percentage points to Hillary Clinton. Ended up winning the state by 3.6 percentage points. So you're looking at from today in 2016 to election day. That's a 6.4% shift for Donald Trump. On this day in 2020, Joe Biden was winning by 2.30. And hey, sorry, I have to go. I have to go, but I'll definitely watch the rest tomorrow. Awesome analysis. You deserve more views. I appreciate that, Mr. Game & Watch, and thank you so much for tuning in and even just hanging out for a little bit. Means a lot. Have a great rest of your night. I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon. Anyway, so we're jumping back in. North Carolina, negative 2.3 percentage points. Joe Biden was leading on this day in 2020. But if we look at the actual on this day result, Trump did win by 1.3. So it's roughly a 3.6 percentage point shift. So on average between the two, you're looking at a 5% shift. Again, the 5% shift is kind of what accounts for kind of being in the middle. You as well, Mr. Game & Watch. And so this would say that Trump would win North Carolina by 5.50. I don't think that's correct. Again, Kamala will underperform Hillary. Trump will overperform a little bit off his margins. And I think that we're looking at probably Trump's going to win North Carolina, also probably by a tilt margin. So probably closer to 2 to 3 points, closer to his 2016 margin. But again, if we go to Polymarket and we look at the current odds, Trump has a 66% chance of winning North Carolina. North Carolina is pretty important for Trump winning. We can actually go to something else that I really enjoy is if we go to 538, let me pull that up real quick. 530 scenarios. If we go to the 538 interactives, that was the wrong one. Let me pull it up. Scenarios. Explore the ways Trump or Harris. Okay, perfect. So this gives us a map, and we can plug in and see how different things, and different states going a certain way can affect the actual election. So let's go in here and let's go ahead and give Trump and Harris each the states that I've already said they'll win. And we can see, I should have loaded it up like this at the start, but it's okay. So then let's come through here. So Nebraska's third will go Trump, DC, Vermont. Give me a second to do this real quick, guys. Maryland, Massachusetts, Hawaii, California. Maine's first, Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island, Washington, New Jersey, Delaware, Illinois, Ohio, Colorado, Alaska. Okay, so we filled everything out up until this point. So as you can see right now, with everything filled out, save for the 7 swing states, you can see that right now in their scenarios, they give Harris a 51% chance of winning to Trump's 48, just off of their scenarios. Now, if we have Trump, as I've already said, he wins Arizona and he wins Georgia. That bumps Trump up to a 78% chance of winning the election, just if he wins both of those states. Then you can see how it shifts everything else up here. So needless to say, Trump winning Arizona and Georgia is very important. He has to flip those back. If he wins North Carolina as well, if he wins the state of North Carolina, that bumps him up to an 89% chance of winning the election. If he loses North Carolina by any capacity, and it goes blue for the first time since 2008, that actually bumps Kamala Harris only up to a 53 to 47% chance of winning the election, or of winning the election as a whole. Now, if we go back, Trump's going to win. In this, I have Trump winning North Carolina, and we can hold that here as well. So that does put President Trump at 259 electoral votes. For some reason, it has him at 261 right now. I don't know what I have selected here that I don't have here, or I don't have here. But all that being said, next let's jump up to the Rust Belt trio. So starting off with Wisconsin, we'll go Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Actually, we'll jump to Nevada first. So Nevada, current Real Clear Politics polling average in the state of Nevada. Nevada currently, Trump is up by 0.8. This is the first time in the polling average that he's led since the end of August, and he led by 0.1. He was leading by 5 points before Joe Biden withdrew. On this day in 2016, Hillary Clinton was up by 4.7 percentage points. On this day in 2020, Joe Biden was up by 5.2. And the actual results in 2016 and 2020, Joe Biden won by 2.4. Hillary Clinton won by 2.4. So they each won by a 2.4 margin. But we can look at trends and see that it is not going to be as easy this go around. So 2.3 percentage shift towards Trump in 2016 and a 2.8 shift for President Trump in 2020. On the current average is 0.8. Just on this alone, it would say that Trump would win by 3.35, but that is not. I don't think that's accurate. I don't think Trump wins by 3.3. I think if anything, if we look at the polling, I mean Trump up 2, 1, 1, 6, 1. It is a dead heat, and I think if Trump does win, it's going to be by probably less than a point. Although I am a little pessimistic. Nevada, there's been a couple of times where we've gone, oh, Nevada, oh, that was our problem. Okay, cool, 262. There have been a couple of times where we've gone, oh, Nevada's going to flip this cycle, and it hasn't. I'm a little pessimistic. Nevada always manages to find a way. I think Kamala wins very, very tight, but she does end up holding the state of Nevada. If we go in here and Nevada does go for Kamala, that bumps Kamala up to a 42% chance of winning the election. Now, if Trump wins Nevada, and Nevada flips red, bumps Trump up to a 77% chance of actually winning the election, 81% chance of winning the election as it shuffles. Because that would be the first true flip for President Trump, him winning a state that he has never won before, and that would be great news for President Trump. But in our scenario, we do have Kamala Harris winning the state of Nevada. That brings the vote totals to I know what that was. That does bring the vote totals up to 262 to 232, so a 30 vote difference, and it all comes down to the Rust Belt trio of states: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So we're going to go left to right. Trump needs 8 to win. Kamala has to run the table to win. So starting off, let's go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, a historically Democratic state. Last time it went for a Republican before 2016 was Ronald Reagan, 1984, where it went by almost 10. In 2016, Trump won it by 0.76. In 2020, Joe Biden won it by almost the opposite, 0.63. Current polling has Wisconsin. Trump is up by 0.2. This is the first time since right after Kamala jumps in the race that Trump has been ahead. At one point, he was down by 2 points at one point, and has just clawed back to now take the lead by 0.2. Right now, betting odds 538. Everything gives Trump 57-43. The Rust Belt trio is still very tight, but Wisconsin is the most conservative of the 3 Rust Belt trio states, and so it would be Wisconsin would be a good indicator of how the rest of the Rust Belt is going to vote. The Rust Belt usually, historically, we can look. Rust Belt votes in a block. It went all blue. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin went blue in 2020, went red in 2016, blue, 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 blue. 1988 was the last time, was the last time and the only time up until this point that the Rust Belt broke in any capacity. Wisconsin went for Michael Dukakis, but then George Bush won Pennsylvania and Michigan. Red, and then in 1976, it's the flip. So Wisconsin, Pennsylvania go for Jimmy Carter, Michigan goes for Gerald Ford, but then red, and then Richard Nixon wins Wisconsin, but Hubert Humphrey wins Michigan. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility and not impossible for the Rust Belt, for the 3 Rust Belt trio states to break. It just hasn't happened in recent electoral history. These usually vote in a block. But looking at all of this, we can look. Wisconsin has some of the craziest underestimations of Trump. On this day in 2016, Hillary Clinton was up by 6.5 points. Trump won by 0.7, so a 7.2% shift. On this day in 2020, Joe Biden was up by 4.6. Trump won by Trump lost by 0.7, so a 3.9 shift. So between the two, you're looking at a 5.55% shift. And obviously on a current average of 0.2 or of 0.2 for President Trump, you're looking at Trump. This would say that Trump would win Wisconsin by 5.75, almost 6. That's not going to happen. It's going to be probably again, and I do think Trump will win Wisconsin. It'll probably be again probably a tilt margin, probably within 3. And you're gonna see that as a common theme in these swing states. It's gonna be whoever wins, it's gonna be tight. Trump will probably win. I don't know. Trump probably wins by 1, by roughly a percentage point. That does point President Trump over the 270 threshold needed to win. And Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania at this point would just be add-ons to an already successful campaign. Speaking of Michigan, let's jump over to the state of Michigan. So, state of Michigan in 2020 went for Joe Biden by 2.8, went for President Trump by 2.22 in 2016. It is the more liberal of the 3 Rust Belt trio states, and so it is going to be, if the Rust Belt doesn't vote together, Michigan will be the one. Assuming that they go for Trump, assuming that Wisconsin and Pennsylvania go for Trump, you would expect Michigan to be the one that breaks. Now, what is interesting is that Trump has the endorsement and the backing of a lot of Muslim Americans. The Muslim mayor of, I believe it's the most majority Muslim town in Michigan, endorsed him. The Pakistani Citizens PAC endorsed Trump over Kamala, and a lot of Muslims are not liking Kamala because of kind of the wishy-washy position she's taken towards Israel, and her and the administration have taken towards Israel. So it's very interesting. Regardless, Michigan does have a high Arab American population, so that is very interesting to see as well. On the Real Clear Politics polling average right now, we do see Donald Trump is up by 1.2, and this is the first time since July that Trump has taken the lead in Michigan. He was down by 2 points at one point. He was leading Biden basically until he dropped out. And then we can see like the most recent batch of polling, Kamala hasn't had a favorable poll for her in Michigan since the start of October. 2-1-4 tie 1-3-2. Like the momentum for Trump is in Trump's corner right now. The betting odds would support this as well. Donald Trump currently 57-43 over Kamala, and obviously there's 2 weeks. There's a lot that can change, and it's going to be very interesting to see. But I mean, current trends, and here's what Trump's got to do in Michigan. So again, we assume that Trump makes some inroads on the white working class. Say Trump makes a 2-3 percentage gain in the white working class. That's enough. Say Kamala flips, makes gains a little bit there. But then in Michigan, you have Detroit. So say that Trump gains maybe like 2 or 3% in Michigan. We're looking at a 2-point victory for Trump. It could very well be 2. I doubt it. I think Trump wins probably closer to a point. Again, that just shows how tight this election is going to be. But I think right now, circle Michigan, because Michigan is, again, of these 3, Michigan is the state that will be the one that, if they don't all go together, will differ, especially if Wisconsin and Pennsylvania go for Trump. But Michigan I have right now as going for Trump, just with the massive influx of polling that we've seen. And I want to say that that's a bit different than what I predicted last week. I'm not gonna pull that up at the moment. But we head to the final swing state, which is the state of Pennsylvania. It's 19 electoral votes. It could very well end up becoming the most important state. There is a world where Kamala Harris wins Wisconsin and Michigan, and we are looking at the election coming down to the state of Pennsylvania, and the winner is determined by whoever wins Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, 19 electoral votes, the most important state, arguably, in the election. If we look at history, Trump wins Pennsylvania by 0.72 in 2016. That was the first time, probably since Ronald Reagan or George H.W. Bush, since George Herbert Walker Bush, that Pennsylvania had gone Republican. And then in 2020, it was a 1.2 percentage point win for Joe Biden. Now, Pennsylvania is interesting because there is a lot of union workers in Pennsylvania who are actually turning and backing Trump a bit more in this election. Current Real Clear Politics polling average in Pennsylvania has Trump up by 0.8. On this day in 2016, Biden was up by 4.9. Hillary was up by 0.62. So between 2016 and 2020 in Pennsylvania, there was a 6.9% shift from the actual result, from the poll to the actual result, and a 3.7 in 2020, 5.3 between the two. So again, one of the biggest questions of the election is there going to be an underestimation of Trump's performance in the election? That's the biggest question mark and the biggest thing that we just don't know. If there is, with the margins right now, Trump's winning the election pretty handily. But even if there's even a 1-point shift towards Kamala, this election might go to Kamala, and it could be it could just be insanely closer. Looking at Polymarket, Trump right now, 60-40 split favorite to win in Pennsylvania. Republicans have been on top of it in voter registration, and if we do go here, I do think that Trump wins a good chunk of the non-college educated voters. I do think Kamala makes some gains here, but I do think with Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, I think Trump does make some gains in the African American community, and that's enough to give him the state of Pennsylvania. Probably wins it by 1 to 2 percentage points as well. So again, inside the tilt margin, but would be enough to win him Pennsylvania. The election's already won for him, but this is basically the 2016 map. Donald Trump wins all of the same states that he won in 2016, 306 to 232 yet again for President Trump. But we'll probably, it's a safe bet to say that this is probably the safest bet. You could be pessimistic and say that Michigan flips for Kamala. That's very possible. But again, history tells us that the Rust Belt trio will all vote together. And so they're all going to go one way or they're going to go the other. And then it's entirely possible that Nevada does flip. But I'm a little pessimistic about Nevada, but we'll wait and see what happens. Let me go ahead and save this map real quick. So this is 10/21/2024. So let's save that map as well. So we've got 2 weeks ago. We've got last week. And I actually had Nevada, we can see, has been the state that has flipped the most. Nevada was blue 2 weeks ago, red last week, and I flipped it back blue this week. And so Nevada's going to be interesting to watch. History tells me that it's a little pessimistic. Okay, so we're going to do something a little new as well, real quick. We're going to take a look at the Senate. So a third of the Senate is up every 2 years. There are 100 Senate seats. And we've got some really interesting races going on in the Senate this go around. So I'll make this pretty quick. Let me go ahead and do this real quick, though. We're going to add a color for independents because there are 2 independents that are up for re-election. And we're going to give them yellow. Boom. Add candidate. Perfect. Okay, cool. So we're going to go ahead real quick and fill in the ones that are going to safe for either candidate. So Washington, that's going to be safe blue. California is going to be safe blue. Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Vermont is Bernie Sanders, and that's a safe. Maine is Angus King. That's a safe hold as well. Mississippi, Tennessee, Josh Hawley's up for re-election in Missouri. He's likely going to win. Nebraska's first is going to be a safe. North Dakota is going to be safe. Wyoming, Utah to replace Mitt Romney is going to be safe. Hawaii is going to be safe. Minnesota will be safe. Indiana will be safe. Jim Banks will win there. Also, what will be safe is going to be, West Virginia. Now, West Virginia is interesting because the incumbent Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is retiring. West Virginia is actually the most conservative state in the union at the presidential level. Donald Trump won West Virginia by 38.9 in 2020, won it by 42.2 in 2016. It went for Mitt Romney by 26. It is consistently one of the most conservative states in the country. And so it has had a Democratic senator for the last 2 decades, I want to say, Joe Manchin. But we're entering an age where ticket splitting is not as common and not as popular. Let me go ahead also and put New Mexico as... All right, we'll talk about New Mexico in a minute. New York as well. Wow, I'm missing some of these. New York also. With that being said, West Virginia, Joe Manchin is retiring. The current governor, Jim Justice, is running for re-election, is running to fill the seat. And by all intents and purposes, we can go to current polling. It is not looking good for Jim Justice's opponent. If there's been even any polling to come out for it, we'll see that right here. If it does decide to load. There we go. So yeah, there's only been one poll. It was out in August, and Jim Justice is up 34 points. So we can safely say that West Virginia is going to be a Republican win, and I'm only doing this to denote flips. So it'll be a lighter red to denote a flip, or a lighter blue to denote a flip. So that is a flip, a big flip for Republicans. Remember, you need 50 plus 1 to win the Senate. Moving on to likely races, New Mexico for sure, and then Montana is probably going to be likely as well, and Montana is going to be another flip. Incumbent Senator Jon Tester has been the Democratic senator there for a couple of decades now, but Montana is again a super Republican state. We can look, went for Trump by 16.4 in 2020, went for Trump by 20 points in 2020, hasn't gone Democrat at the presidential level since 1992 with Bill Clinton. Jon Tester has kind of been an anomaly, however. Again, a lot of ticket splitting. But if we look at current polling and we look at the current state of that race, he is running against Tim Sheehy. Tim Sheehy currently up in the polling average about 7 points, anywhere from 6 to 8 percentage points. Not looking good for Jon Tester. So it's going to be a likely flip for Republicans, and that is the second flip on the night for Republicans. And Republicans just need 50, and they'll get it here. Tim Scott, or Rick Scott rather, the incumbent senator from Florida, he is up for re-election down in Florida. Current polling, he won his first race in 2018 by a small amount. He is currently up by 5.2%, and he will probably win it. Here's the reality, and here's the thing that people have to consider with these down ballot races, is if this was a midterm year, some of my predictions would be a little bit different. The reason being is that Donald Trump has this very good ability to boost down ballot races when he's on the ballot, because Donald Trump brings out a ton of low propensity voters. That's what I was wanting to say earlier. Donald Trump brings out a ton of low propensity voters, people who don't vote all the time, and they'll vote down ballot. And especially if split ticket voting doesn't happen, we'll definitely see some of these tighter races end up being spread out a little bit more than we expected. So I think RCP polling average for Tim Scott, if Donald Trump wins Florida by 8 to 9 points, Tim Scott probably wins by 7 to 8. So I think it's likely. It's a likely hold for Republicans. And then same in Texas. Ted Cruz is not losing in Texas. We can go to the current polling average right now. I live in Texas, and there's a lot of people that are like, oh, Ted Cruz, are you nervous? No, I'm not. Current polling average has Ted Cruz up by 4.5%. Again, if this was a midterm, I'd maybe be a little bit more nervous. But Trump boosts down ballot races. Trump being on the ballot where he'll win Texas by 7 percentage points. Or he'll win Texas probably by 6 to 7 points. Ted Cruz is not going to lose in that environment. He'll probably win by 4 to 5. But Ted Cruz is not losing in Texas with Trump on the ballot, and with Trump winning Texas probably by 6 to 7 points, 7 to 8 points. So that actually does put Republicans at the necessary 50. Another likely Republican as well is going to be Nebraska's special. Don Osborne is an independent. He's running to unseat Deb Fischer, the current incumbent. But it's going to be one of those deals. I mean, I'll take you again back to Real Clear Politics. I mean, Fischer's won by a large amount in both of her re-election bid, in both of her current bids right now. If we go to let's go here. Let's just go here. 2024 Nebraska, or let's go to the Senate. 2024, Nebraska. We can go here. Current polling would show us, I mean, Fisher by 7. A lot of these are going to be funded by their own groups. But again, in a Trump environment, it's a pretty safe bet that Deb Fischer is going to win by a pretty good margin. And so it might be a little closer maybe than people want, or than people would maybe feel comfortable with. But if we go here we go. Deb Fischer's only up by 0.8, but that's because there's been so many Dan Osborne polls. I mean, anything for Deb Fischer's up 6, 7. Dan Osborne polls ring him up, and that's an internal poll, so that's not going to be super accurate at all. Deb Fischer probably wins by a likely margin, and that's, again, another Republican hold. So Republicans are actually at 51 to 41. Let's go ahead and put Virginia in that likely column as well. And that turns us around to the states of interest. And if you notice, they reflect a little bit of what we see at the presidential level, which is what makes this really interesting. So Republicans already have control of the Senate. What we see right now is a base level map and a likely solution, or a likely outcome before any of these swing states. So Nevada. Incumbent Senator Jackie Rosen is up for re-election against Sam Brown, a war veteran. So if we look at the current polling average in Nevada, and I'm going to be consistent with my presidential picks. So right now, Jackie Rosen is up by 5.4. I do think that she holds on to this seat. I don't think that Sam Brown, especially if Kamala does win, Sam Brown would have to overperform Trump, which is possible. I don't know. But Jackie Rosen probably wins by 3 to 4 or 2 to 4 in Nevada. I'm not 100% confident in Sam Brown being able to flip. Moving on to Arizona. Again, this will be another Democrat win. Kari Lake, or current Senator Kyrsten Sinema, is retiring. She's an independent. And it is between Kari Lake, who ran for governor in Arizona in 2022, versus Representative Ruben Gallego. Current polling average has Gallego up by 6.3. If Trump does win Arizona, this will be close, especially if he wins it by about a point or 2 points. Again, he boosts down ballot races, but I think Kari's down by such a large margin that I don't think it'll be enough. This will actually be a flip, because technically Arizona is an independent right now, so this would actually flip to the Democrats, so it would be a Democratic pickup. And so that leaves us at 51-43. I'm kind of breezing through these. These are the main ones that I want to get to. So, starting with Wisconsin. Currently, in the polling average, Wisconsin has tightened immensely. Tammy Baldwin, the current incumbent senator, only up by 2.4 points against Eric Hovde. And you can see that it has dropped if you look at the trend. At one point, Tammy Baldwin was up by 6.7 points, has dropped down. She's now only up by 2, and Hovde is on the upswing. If, again, Trump does boost down ballot candidates, this would be a different conversation, maybe in a midterm. But considering that Trump does boost down ballot, the conversation has to be had. Does Eric Hovde have a chance? And I think it's possible. This is legitimately some of these Senate races. This one in Michigan especially, I think, are coin flips. I'm going to listen to my pessimistic side right now. And I think that maybe Tammy Baldwin does squeak one out. I don't know. I'm dancing between it right now. If we go to Polymarket, we can go to Polymarket and we can look at the Senate. Where is Senate? Wisconsin, Nevada, Nebraska, New Mexico. Where is Wisconsin? Let's just search Wisconsin. Wisconsin Senate election. So right now, Tammy Baldwin, it is 65-32. So the betting markets do think that she has a chance to win. I'm going to kind of lean there as well. I think Tammy Baldwin will hold on. It'll be very tight, especially if Trump wins. If Trump wins by a point, that might not be able to be enough to bring Hovde over the finish line. In Michigan, current incumbent senator, I think it's Debbie Stabenow, is retiring. So it is Mike Rogers versus Representative Elise Slotkin to fill that seat. Current polling right now would suggest that, again, 2.1%. It has, again, another instance where it has massively tightened here in the last few days, in the last few weeks. At one point, she was up by 5.1 in early part of September, and it has dropped now down to 2.2. Looking at Polymarket, right now, if we go back to Michigan, and this is probably, I'm going to tell you, this will probably be an instance of the same deal as Wisconsin. However, that's the presidential election, not the Senate. I was about to be really shocked. Michigan Senate, again, 67-34. Betting markets still are high on Elise Slotkin still, but Mike Rogers has shot up a little bit, and just in the last couple of days, there's been a noticeable shift in his kind of upward tick in his betting odds, but again, probably unfortunately will not be enough. Probably the same deal if Trump wins by about a point in Michigan. Slotkin probably holds that seat. Moving down to Ohio, this one's really interesting. So it's current incumbent Senator Sherrod Brown, who's a Democrat in a very rightward trending state, going up against Bernie Moreno. Current polling would suggest that Moreno just took the lead. Brown is up by 0.6. Again, this is another one. They don't have the little graph, but you can see it's gone from Brown up 5, 6, 7, 10 down to now it's 2, 4, 2, 1. Moreno has taken the lead in his first poll, so it is trending hard for Bernie Moreno right now. If we go back to here and we go to Polymarket, look at the betting markets, what the betting markets are feeling right now for Ohio. That is, where are you? Ohio Senate election. Right now, Bernie Moreno has actually taken the lead, and he took the lead a couple of days ago. He is currently running with it 60-40. And I think if Donald Trump does win the state, again, he is really good at boosting down ballot races. And I think that Bernie Moreno probably wins by 2 to 3 points in Ohio. Ohio gets a full Republican delegation, and that is the third Republican flip of the night, putting Republicans at 52-45 on the Senate, coming into the final seat, which is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Democratic Senator Bob Casey running against businessman Dave McCormick. Current polling average right now, and it is, again, a dead heat. That is what we're seeing in all of these races right now. It's a dead heat. Bob Casey up 1.9. McCormick just recently leading his first poll. And you can see, again, 5.1, and it has just dropped down to 1.9 over the last few weeks. The trends have followed Republicans massively over the down ballot just across the board. If we go to Polymarket, Pennsylvania Senate, Bob Casey dipped a little bit, but he's kind of shot back up. 70-30 right now. I think it depends on how much Trump wins. But right now, I mean, this and Wisconsin are the two sleeper flips for me. But right now, playing a little pessimistic. We still got plenty of time. Definitely could change, but right now that's probably the safe bet. So right now, safe bet is 52 to 46 with 2 independents. That'll caucus with the Democrats. So a 52-48 majority for Republicans. That's actually not bad at all. That's actually really good. Republicans get control of the Senate, and assuming that Trump does win the Senate or win the presidency, that's really good for them. 3 flips for the Republicans: West Virginia, Ohio, and Montana, with an Arizona flip for the Democrats. But that is all we have for tonight. Let me go ahead and save this map. We're going to save it as 10/21/2024 Senate. But that is all of the time I have tonight. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching. We'll be back next week. Only 2 more of these, one next week and one the Monday, the day before Election Day, the final prediction. But I'll see you guys then. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll be back.